Oh my goodness. Hello ladies and gentlemen. As it turns out, it is currently February 22nd, 2010, and this is Day 9 Daily number 74. Oh my goodness. Hello everyone. Oh my god, I'm in a fantastic mood because I just got back just in time to begin this cast, and I have a bowl of split pea soup here. Many of you may know me for my epic consumption of chicken pot pies, but I also have a particular affection for split pea and ham soup. I was actually considering getting sponsored by them, just because I think that'd be really progressive for the gaming community. You know, people be like, who are you sponsored by? It's just like, oh, Alienware and Nvidia. It's like, who are you sponsored by, Sean? I'm like, soup, you know? I mean, we gamers, we eat our Hot Pockets and our pizzas and stuff, but I really think that soup could benefit by, you know, using me to penetrate into that market. Man, I really am smart. Oh, fantastic. Alright, cool. Today we're going to be looking at a little bit of a little Zerg action, how to open with Zerg, and we talked a little bit about that. But before I do anything, I need to give a big shout out to Diggity and Cholera and all my buddies over at SC2 because apparently they've been promoting this show without ever even telling me, or, you know, like, without me requesting it at all. So that's super duper nice of them. So I will counter promote. People should go check out SC2 and watch Husky and Diggity and all those friends do their good little Starcraft commentary action while I eat some soup. Wonderful. Alright, cool. So today, oh, by the way, CJ and his shirt. As you can tell, I'm a huge Starcraft nerd. So, when you're playing Zerg in Starcraft 1, there's this weird thing that happens because you have larvae. So let's stop for a moment and think about Protoss and Terran. It's really nice, the fact that your command center can actually constantly build you workers. Your economy is always slowly growing and slowly growing. We have the famous player Maynard, way back in, I guess, 99 it was, who, you know, pioneered the Maynard transfer, which is to take half the probes from your main and bring them to your new expansions. That way you could get it up immediately, which, if you think about it, is really... It's not something that a lot of people would think of at first. In fact, when I used to expand, I would expand, and then once it finished, I would start building probes and send it. And that's really what people did there. But that is so nice that in StarCraft 2 as well as StarCraft 1, you can constantly build this stream of workers. Zerg, on the other hand, and let's just stick to StarCraft 1 for this example, Zerg have larvae, and you have to manage those larvae. You cannot constantly be producing some military units and constantly producing workers. You have to choose to do one or the other. So there's always this period of time where Zerg needs to figure out, when can I make drones? That's one of the most important concepts in virtually any build for Zerg in StarCraft 1. Let's take, for instance, 2-hatch Mutalisk. When are the... sorry, I have some pea in my teeth. Split pea soup. Whoopsie daisies. Oh man, that's one's gonna get put on YouTube. So yeah, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, 2-hatch Mutalisk in Zerg vs. Terran. Zerg opens up and makes tons and tons of drones right at the start. That's the first period of powering for Zerg. And then Zerg gets a bunch of Mutalisks, probably is going to be committing maybe upwards of 15, 16 larvae to those Mutalisks just off the 2 hatcheries. And in this meantime, the Zerg player is going to be expanding while he's making all these Mutalisks, and he's going to be teching towards lurkers fairly quickly. And then when Zerg gets those lurkers, now there is a new time for him to power like crazy. He's going to be making a ton of drones in this period again. Let's think about 3-hatch Mutalisk in Zerg vs. Terran. Zerg makes a bunch of Mutalisk, and then stops for a little bit, or excuse me, makes a bunch of drones, and then Zerg stops a little bit, makes Zerglings, does a little bit of harassment, gets the Mutalisks out, and then when the Mutas are out, now this is the period where we're making a ton of drones, up to the period where we're getting those lurkers. And the idea is we can make all these drones, and right before Terran hits us is right when our lurkers finish, so we can adequately defend that. So, now that I've been screwing around with StarCraft 2, which I have loaded up over here, let me actually log in so that way my email address is hidden. So that way I don't get all the excessive spam, which I've been getting quite a bit of as of late. Oh yes, those rewarding StarCraft noises. So, what I've been experimenting with in just pretty much all the matches I've been playing with Zerg is figuring out how to think about this times of powering, when I can get away with making a lot of drones, how to tech, and sort of the experimentation that's gone around with that, and as a result, some of the builds that have cropped up. A big important concept with this is people tend to think only in terms of resources and kind of ignore the fact that they're getting excess larvae. So for instance, I've seen a lot of players in replays have their main and their natural hatchery. They just have 2 bases, but they're using constant queen production. They actually get 2 queens to constantly vomit new larvae onto those hatcheries. And that, I actually think, is less than optimal, because you have too many larvae. You cannot constantly produce out of them. And I think that's going to be quite a big issue after a while. So there's a few thoughts I want to just throw out there for any of you who are interested in playing around with this idea yourselves. One would be that the queen, because 4 larvae come off simultaneously, you could conceivably do something like constantly make units out of your hatcheries, but when those 4 larvae come off, instantly make 4 drones with them. And that's how you get a sort of steady influx. See maybe if that works. I personally am still trying to try out things like just regular early expands where I power a lot and then make a lot of units. Let's go ahead and take a brief look right over at the main screen. Begin with one of my first attempts at this. This was, again, me and my buddy Tristan are testing this sort of stuff out. The basic build that I'm looking at here is, got to rearrange the keyboard, scoot stuff about, letting the beta load. And, by the way, for bugs that you guys, I would request that you support and put out there, when the game's loading up, right when it starts, your mouse cursor doesn't begin in the center. So it's actually really hard for me not to start off the game and be scrolling either far to the left or far to the right. So, something you might want to put down there. I don't know if anyone else has noticed that. So here's me in the Zerg pieces. Here's my opponent, Tristan, in the Protoss pieces over here. But yeah, so my basic goal is I want to be making a pool around 13 or so. And I want to be expanding right here to my natural, probably around 14. And then right when my spawning pool finishes, I'll get some Zerglings for defense, and I'll be able to defend this from any sort of rush. And then I'll get the queen right away, so I can start powering really hard. Now, if I remember correctly, this is the second game I was doing this against my friend Tristan. We were doing some regular old practice matches where I just said, do whatever you want, and I'm going to, do my build over here. And here I am making my overlord, everything's normal. And this is the build I tried. It managed to work pretty effectively. However, afterwards, I was wondering, I felt a little weak at these points. Tristan, could you do the following? And I think that that's actually a really, really important thing for anyone who's trying to get better, is that you have a practice partner where at the end of your game you say, well, there was one part where I was feeling a little bit nervous. Can you do blank? So in this game, I said, Tristan, you went for 1-gate fast tech. Can you now go for a 2-gate rush? I want to see what that feels like. So this will either be the first or the second game in that series. So here I am. I'm going ahead and building the drones right now. I'm not doing any scouting right now, mostly because I'm bad, but because mainly because I was spending all my energy, focusing on this build order, making sure it was going well. Yeah, so I'm scouting out. And plus, I really figured I don't need to scout too early because I'm not going to be doing any big deviations early on in my build. So that's always an important thing. Always scout with purpose. Don't just throw a scout out there just because you can. And here's Tristan happily chrono boosting away at his Nexus, and he's scouting me. Now, here's one of my first concerns that I'm seeing right now. Notice that his probe is getting into my base. What does that mean? It means that when I go to expand, he knows exactly what I'm doing. On a 2-player map, I might be concerned about doing this pool first straight into expansion type build. But of course, I now know of or actually I'll save that for the end few games that we look at. There's an adjustment I'm going to make to try to account for that. So he's sort of poking around. He doesn't block my hatch because I asked him not to. Whoopsie daisies. Looks like I am opening up a handful of notepad documents that I don't want to be doing. And here we go, moving about and scouting. And so here's my first thing I'm noticing with my build. I got my Overlord up a little bit too early, right? Notice that I'm at 16 of 26 food. I don't know if everyone could see that properly in the corner. But it makes sense for me to do that because I wanted 3 sets of Zerglings, and I also wanted to get a queen after this, so I figured I should go ahead and get the Overlord out early. Even though it actually, it feels early right now, but it might be okay, because here I am, I'm going to get a queen. There we go. I'm going to send my Zerglings around. I'm still kind of having some issues controlling things properly. My hands don't quite have the right feel for it yet. But we're seeing, I'm going to be pretty slow this game, because I just want to be able to examine everything completely clearly. So here's Tristan. Oh no, this is the game where he's fast-teching. Okay, that's great. Now we can see the first game in this series of games that I played against him. So here I am, I'm getting the queen, and I'm feeling very confident about my position because at this point I'm in his base, I see that he's fast tech, I'm not going to be worrying too much about zealots. And another thing I was also thinking right now, and this actually took me a long time to think about, but if you do this pool first and then you expand, it means that you don't quite have the creep up. Now that was a big concern in StarCraft 1 because it meant that you couldn't get the sunken colonies up. And in pretty much every matchup, Zerg vs Terran, Zerg vs Protoss, there was always a timing window where you could run in there with a bunch of SCVs and Marines, a bunch of Zealots and Probes, and just kill off the Zerg because you couldn't have sunken colonies up in time. However, it's StarCraft 2, so I can make a spine crawler in my base, and then uproot it, run it to the hatchery, and burrow it right away for instant defense. So that's something that I think a lot of people should begin trying to think about and trying to incorporate into their play. For instance, if I made a hatch here, it's tempting to make a whole bunch of extra drones in my main and then make a spawning pool, but I think it might be good to get the pool out early so that way you can send spine crawlers to defend earlier on. Oh, whoops, I was going to start this off actually with a David Kim versus Noni game, but I'll go ahead and do that after we watch these two games. And now I'm just going to be powering. I'm going to be making drones. This is the stage in my mind where I'm thinking I want to power. So notice that I have a little bit of buildup of money. I'm at 425. I'm not going to spend that quite yet, and we're going to see why in a moment. And I'm trying to keep a good eye on Tristan. I'm just kind of hanging out here with Zerglings, and my thought is that if he did attack me, these 4 larvae that would pop off I could make Zerglings with. But suppose that in the series of practicing this, I'm losing a lot to early rushes, I would do something little, like get a speed boost. That's very common in Zerg vs Protoss in StarCraft 1. And there's a spine crawler just because I was feeling a little bit scared. But in StarCraft 1, think about that. In Zerg vs Protoss, the way it normally looks is the Protoss player early expands, and the Zerg player expands twice, and both players seem to not be doing anything. That's actually one of the weirdest things that new players notice is they say, hey, it's been 6 minutes into the game, and literally no one has made any units to attack, and neither player has made defense. The Protoss is trying to get away with just one cannon. It seems like it seems unreal that either player could want to be doing that. However, if you look at the Zerg player, look at how subtle it is, the fact that the Zerg player is getting Zergling speed as he's powering drones constantly. He's getting upgrades for the units that he might have to make, but not necessarily. And that Zergling speed is actually huge, because when you're spread out with 3 hatcheries, you need to be covering that entire space well enough. So, that's the sort of thing that I'm noticing when I'm powering here. Oops, I'm way off the screen. Let's scroll right back here. But even though I'm planning on powering, I'm making tons of drones. With these extra larvae that have just popped off, I'm going to be making drones. Of course, assuming that I didn't forget an Overlord, which I did, because I'm awful. Yeah, look at me making Overlords. Oh, how embarrassing. But yeah, I'm continuing to vomit away, keeping my queen energy low. But part of me is going, I might want to get a speed boost in case I die to some early Zealot pressure. Alternatively, I could get a Roach Warren early on because that only requires minerals. That way I wouldn't have to wait for all this gas buildup. But not necessarily building any roaches because I want to commit to a big economy. I'm powering. As a Zerg player, I need to find that powering stage. Notice that now my money's starting to get low because with Zerg in this game, because these 4 larvae pop off all at the same time from the queen vomit, that's a big, big, big concern. Or, well, it's not a concern at all. I don't know why that word popped into my throat. Okay, let's try that one more time. Yeah, it's a big influx of the ability to spend money. So if your money's building up a little bit, don't overreact as Zerg. First, play it out a little bit and make sure that your larvae that pop off, see right here, there's all my 4 larvae coming off. Make sure that you can actually make good use of those, that you're not doing something excessive. Because actually my first few games playing Zerg, I made that mistake. I saw that I had 400 and I was like, oh, I'll just make a 3rd hatchery. And I just threw it out there willy-nilly. And as a result, I couldn't spend the money well enough. I had tons of larvae hanging around, and that was actually really obnoxious because with the queen giving me all these extra, I had like 20 larvae at each hatch. It was awfully embarrassing. So, and my goal right now is to go for Hydralisks, because they seem like a good, solid unit for Zerg. They do a ton of damage. I actually like them quite a bit more than Roaches in this game, just because the damage output seems to be much, much higher with them. And Tristan is, of course, going for his Immortal build. Oh yeah, by the way, if any of you were watching the cast yesterday, it was all about Immortals and how they influenced Tristan and I's thought about this matchup. So, of course, he was going to do variants on this. He was going to, make an Observer and then make an Immortal. Because virtually all players on the ladder seem to be Roach rushing, and Immortals demolish Roaches. It's like not even close at all. So, he was just going to go ahead and do that. So that's perhaps something I would need to consider if I was doing that potential defense by getting my Roach Warren up here early. So here I am, building my Hydralisk Den, and look how many drones I'm getting. I'm still getting tons and tons and tons of drones. I don't know about the strength of spine crawlers, against the strength of Zealots. I'd probably need to work on this just a little bit, because I think I am a little bit too vulnerable right now. And this is why I said to my friend Tristan, 2-gate rush me after we play this game. Put a ton of pressure on me. Because notice that, look how many drones I have. I'm so saturated. Oh, actually I can use this fancy smanchy thing. Yeah, look at this. I have 40 drones to Tristan's 32. And he even has that chrono boost. That's a pretty significant lead I have in terms of economy. Can I get away with that? I don't know. That's the big thought I was having in the middle of this game, was that, wow, I'm feeling uncomfortable with how vulnerable I'm feeling right now. So I wanted to test it with him. So go get a buddy. So hey, look, my den finishes. Make hydrolisks. And look how coincidentally well-timed my economy was. Hooray! You know, I'll take credit for it and act like I was a genius and did that myself. But really, when I saw that, I was like, huh, weird. I guess I'll have to remember that. Yeah, look, if you power drones really hard, I get my second extractor at this time and then get a den. Look how I can get a nice big hydrolisk armor really quickly. Oh, look, Artosis is online. Hello, Artosis. Artosis, as you know, is the very famous American shoutcaster who's living out in South Korea, living the dream, talking about Starcraft, biggest scam in Korea. Basically doing the same thing as my bro, and of course they are good buddies. And here's something to note right away. I don't think it's ever bad to kill these destructible rocks early. Unless you're having a lot of trouble defending this space, and I don't necessarily think you would. I mean, you can pretty much fall back to this ramp and have defenses here, and try to set the arc of your units up here. And then it doesn't matter that he has a high ground advantage. If this was closer, like if this ramp were flush right up here, this is where the destructible rocks were, I'd probably put it off. But I'm just killing these off, so that way I can get this expansion up earlier. So here's another thing to think about with transitioning in the mid-game for Zerg. I didn't get these geysers up for a very long time. Notice that I've mined almost no gas out of them. 2468 out of this one and 2428 out of this one. That was intentional because what I was assuming was that I would be able to build hydrolisks with the gas buildup that I've been doing all game. Because note that I haven't really spent any gas up to this point. So I would flood with a bunch of hydrolisks. And then my money would start to build up because I didn't quite have enough gas, and then I would use that money to throw down an expansion. What I don't want to do is get my geysers way too early, and then I have all this excess gas that I'm not spending. I want this build to be as smoothed out as possible. That's the term I always use. I want it to be nice and smooth. So here I am, killing this destructible rock, and I'm going to slow this battle down because I have such powers. And I'm pulling back because I'm like, come on, hydrolisks. And here's really good technique, coming up here to the ramp to minimize the amount of surface area the Zealots can do damage-wise. No big deal. And this is the usual sort of unit composition for Protoss. Even as this little sentry guy, gonna throw down, I think, the Guardian Shield in a minute, but either way, look how quickly these hydrolisks fall. Now, one thing to note, I'm gonna say this, and I'm hoping that it's true. Actually, I'll just go ahead and come over to the main camera. So there's these imaginary words that people created in StarCraft 1, which were soft counters and hard counters. And soft counter was the idea that if you do strategy X and I do strategy Y, actually let's just go to the beginning of the alphabet. Screw those letters. So you're done doing strategy A. If you do strategy B, you'll be pretty good against it. That's like a soft counter, right? But then there's these hard counters. This unit crushes that one. So people would say something like a Dragoon is a hard counter to a Wraith or something like that. And I'm personally of the opinion that it's very important not to have too many hard counters in a strategy game. A lot of strategy games literally dictate to you the way that it works. So the example I like to use is archers beat cavalry, and cavalry beat infantry, and infantry beat archers. And these are like extreme. Like if there's 3 infantry and 10 archers, 3 infantry take like half a hit point of damage each and demolish the entire archer army. I think that's really bad, because then you get these weird, funky unit compositions where you pretty much need one of everything. And don't worry, it's gonna come back and relate to this game. So we're gonna come back to this game in a little bit. When we think about StarCraft 1, there's a lot of really interesting things that happen in terms of this unit being good against that. So Zerglings are very good against Zealots in small numbers, and Zerglings are extremely good against Marines in small numbers. But Zerglings are not so good against Zealots when the Zealots are in larger numbers. Or actually when they're both in larger numbers. And in large numbers, Medic Marine actually tear through Zerglings. So it actually sort of shifts over time depending on size. So I think that these are really important concepts to think about, because I want to try to apply this to StarCraft 2. And I'm thinking that, you know, these hydrolisks, might not be so good in small numbers because they're pretty weak, you know. They only have 90 life. The Roaches, which is a tier 1 unit, actually has 145 life, has much, much more than a Hydralisk and even heal faster. So, you know, why wouldn't I just get those? Well, because I think that if I can get a critical number of Hydralisks, I'm going to be in fantastic shape. And in terms of the counters, notice the Immortal does this thing where anything that's greater than 10 damage gets dropped down to 10 damage. That's why we keep seeing that little whoosh, this little shield that's appear, and I'll highlight it in a moment. But I still think that if I have enough Hydralisks, it doesn't even really matter. So let's go ahead and resume this game. So see, there's that little thing that's going on there. I'm sure you love my sound effects. Yeah, look at this. I'm able to take it out. And just in terms of crisis management, I'm making sure to make Zerglings here because, you know, I know Immortals are superheroes, so I want to be able to hold that off. But yeah, just continuing to spam. But my money's pretty low. I'm continuing to vomit regularly with my Queen. Yeah, I also think I could have gotten this range upgrade earlier for my Hydralisks. But look, effectively holding this off. So what have I identified? How did this look for me as Zerg? Well, it looks like I barely held it off. And you know what that means? That means I did something right. A lot of people tend to go, ugh, when they barely hold something off. And that's good because it means that you got away with all the stuff you wanted to get away with, and you're alive. I mean, if we look at this game, I was able to get a ton of drones. We can saw I managed to get way ahead of my opponent, Tristan, in drones, and I got this third expansion up, and I held off a push. All right, sweet. So I definitely did a good bit of learning there. I think that was super, super, super good. But we're going to see some more illustrations where I kind of go, ugh, I need to get a little bit, I need to smooth that sort of thing out. And oopsie daisies, just speeding it up. And I pretty much proceed to just get a ton of Hydralisks. And this is part of, I think this is perhaps a flaw. Actually, it's certainly a flaw. I don't really have a plan at this point. I'm like, all right, I held the attack. All right, and I think I got an extra Queen here because I could. You know, slowly adding on the Queens. Don't go gung-ho about adding on the Queens. Don't go nuts with them because, you know, they're really good. They vomit those larvae awfully fast. So part of me is also liking the fact that he went for this Robotech because it seems pretty easy to defend if I get all these Immortals. And notice that this Immortal, even though it does plus 30 versus Armored, and now plus 33 because he has a +1 upgrade, even with that, I don't really have any armored units, so it's not going to do too much damage. And I was actually really aware of that when I was trying to sculpt this play in my mind with these very fast Hydralisks, because, you know, Tristan and I were just like, God, this Immortal's like such a superhero against armored units. So I was specifically trying to avoid that. I'm curious, though, maybe if Tristan had gone for a Colossus, maybe he would have held it off. Maybe that sort of thing would be something interesting to consider. But I was still pretty pleased with the way that went. So let's actually, I think I might be able to find the replay of him doing the 2-gate rush. I actually thought I saved that replay, but who'd have thought that I would prepare for these things, eh? Okay, let's see. I know we did it last night. And I accidentally loaded up another replay, which I did not mean to. Never double-click when you intend to scroll. But let's still blab on a little bit about that powering phase. So all the things that I was worried about, so I obviously went on about I'm feeling kind of vulnerable in the early stages. How do I improve on that? Well, I'm obviously going to have Tristan try to rush me a bunch of times and see if he can win. But there are also little things like my friend Tristan got a really fast +1 upgrade, which is actually critical against Zerglings. And when I say critical, what I mean is that it makes the Zealots kill Zerglings in 2 hits instead of 3. It drops the amount of hits by 1. So that's super important. So part of me was going, I wonder if I could actually get a faster +1 upgrade. Maybe that's something that's going to be really, really important. +1 carapace upgrade. I actually ended up doing that in another game. How long was that? That was 10 minutes and 30-some seconds. Let's see if I actually almost have it here. Maybe I don't. Oh well, you know what, let's just go ahead and not waste any more time. Basically, I tried that 2-gate rush build, and I'm able to hold it off, barely. My Queen finishes in my main, I vomit larva in my main, and then I run the Queen down with some Zerglings to my ramp and manage to hold it off relatively easily. Now, I want to show you something hilarious, because I never really had played Zerg vs. Zerg, and I don't know, I'm clueless about this matchup at this point, and that's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make an attempt to do pretty much the similar build that I did in that previous game. No reason not to do that. I figured out a relatively decent way to manage my economy. And we're going to throw that out here at, in a Zerg vs. Zerg. So I'm going to go ahead and speed this up a little bit. We're also going to get the chance to look at some Zerg vs. Terrans after this point, and sort of how they relate and how everything links together. And one thing I like about this example that we're doing is we're looking at this Zerg opening I'm trying to experiment around with in all the matchups. Because that's something that actually a lot of people don't consider. Actually, I'll come over here. That's something people don't consider in StarCraft 1 enough. Hey, if I go 2 barracks opening against Zerg, I can get this Medic Marine army now. Have you ever considered doing that against Protoss? Most people just go, no, because it's not a Terran versus Protoss build. Give it a shot, see what it feels like. Surprisingly enough, it's a very dangerous timing attack window for Terran. So I think you can learn a little bit of something about how Medic Marine operates. So, we're getting the opportunity to check out all my junk here in this matchup. And here we go, I'm going ahead and getting a spawning pool, and everything's great, and Tristan's also getting a spawning pool. And this bugged me. Normally if you right-click the Overlord on a hatchery in StarCraft 1, it centers over the Overlord. But here, it only just comes up and bumps into it. Does a little bit of an air cuddle. Yeah, so here I am, I'm expanding, and I don't know if this is good or not, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to try it, and I'm going to see how it feels. So, one thing that I actually did in this game is I adjusted the Overlord timing. Remember in that previous game when I said, man, it really feels like I'm getting that Overlord a little bit too early, because I was at 16 of like 28 food. So I tried to back it off a little bit. And of course this means that I just forgot the Overlord completely altogether. So don't over-adjust to the point of being awful. Yeah, and I swear to God, I built this Overlord like a million times. My hands are probably going SO because I'm a StarCraft 1 player instead of SV, which is the actual hotkey to build it here. So I'm getting some Zerglings out. I'm going to go ahead and put a little pressure on them. This feels very StarCraft 1-like. Why am I moving these Zerglings out? Well, first of all, if he doesn't do anything, I'll be able to kill some drones off. But for the most part, I want him to overcompensate and build too many Zerglings. Just the act of moving forward with the intention of moving back freaks my opponents out a little bit. So yeah, look, he has the Queen coming out. This obviously isn't going to do any damage. Oh yeah, I forgot that Queens can shoot air. And Tristan forgot that Queens can shoot air, so we just kill each other's Overlords, so no big deal. Easy StarCraft 1 mistake. Tristan actually told me specifically that he was going for +1 Zergling speed. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take what I learned from that Zerg vs. Protoss game. I'm going to make some drones. I'm going to power a little bit, because I like powering. I'm going to continue vomiting. And I'm going to go for a Roach Warren and try to get some roaches out early, because Tristan actually beat me with something similar to that before. And of course, because I'm bad, I forgot to macro with my Queen, so I vomit here, and then I just come down here to vomit over here. Get some extra larvae. And we're going to see how poorly this fails for me. And see, look, my Roach Warren, it's coming down a pretty good time. I'm also noticing, wow, I have a lot of gas. I should not have gassed this early if I wanted to go for a Roach Warren. And notice, this analysis of this Roach Warren, whoa, I got this early because look how much gas I have, I don't need that. That applies to every matchup. I can see the timing that I got this extractor. I got it at 16 food after my pool and my hatch went down, and that's too early. I can say that fairly definitively. So then, I try to move forward with my Zerglings, and I'm like, uh-oh. I see, like, all these Zerglings come down. And I'm starting to realize, after this game, as we're going to see, and as you kind of note because there's only 15 seconds left in this game, my friend Tristan gets Zergling speed, so his guys scoot over here real quick, and I try to block it with my Queen, and he just, like, instantly kills me. Look at this, he just waltzes right in here. And my slow Queen, and I'm just like, alright, good game, look, learning done, so cool. What has gone on from these two games? Well, I had a build I proposed in Zerg vs. Protoss, tried it out a little bit, seemed to work really well. So well, in fact, that I said, ooh, I want to be able to do this again. Tristan, please 2-gate rush me. How did it work? I was able to hold it off just fine, repel them to the point where I was completely safe, had a spine crawler up, had a lot of Zerglings, had the Queen up. I was actually getting a Roach Warren then, so I'm like, wow, yeah, I'm really getting a solid opening down here. Let's transfer to the other matchup and see how it feels. Zerg vs. Zerg? No, do not go for Roach Warren fast. Make more units. Do not try to power so hard. Cool, I'm starting to get some ideas. And let's actually check out a Zerg vs. Terran as our final example so we can sort of check it out. And I just think it's interesting to see how all the thoughts of just this one sort of adjustment, which actually Battle, a player on Team Liquid, sent me the message for. Just an idea. Let's see. Oh yeah, there's the LOL game. And here we go, going right into Metropolis. Yeah, a player named Battle suggested the idea of getting pool before hatch, so that way I could get the Queen up early and start really powering larvae, and I like that quite a bit. So I adjusted his numbers a little bit, but of course I'm going to give him due credit. And look how awful I am. Okay, It's auto-split. It splits the workers for you, yet for some reason, I'm always like, I'm better than the algorithm, and I try to do it myself, and I swear to God, I have botched, like, every single one that I have done. The only effective way I've found to split, and actually I'm curious if anyone else has any thoughts on this, is I select all 6 workers, send them to a mineral patch, select 3 workers on the right, and send them to a faraway mineral patch, and that's all the splitting I do. So, you know, don't try to get too fancy when Blizzard's doing it for you. Here I am sending my Overlord out. Good little Overlord. And if all of you are nice little observers, I will do an Overlord impersonation. You know, everyone always does, you know, ready to roll out, you know, and all the other things like the Wraith noises. And I'm awful at doing those, except, you know, maybe for a science vessel. But the Zerg noises, oh man, I can do like every Zerg unit impersonation so good. Oh man. Alright, here's a bonus for you. Starcraft 1. You guys want to hear a queen? God, that sounds like a queen. Literally, I don't know if anyone's reacting to that, but I'm actually fist pumping off camera as I'm doing this build. Let's speed it up because we're pretty much watching nothing. So Zerg vs. Terran, what adjustment am I going to make? That's an excellent question. I actually can't remember what opening I do. One thing that I'm considering right now is I'm saying, hey, you know, in that 2-gate rush, I noticed that this expansion was ultra safe. I had no problem defending it, or defending a 2-gate rush. So if I know my opponent is likely not to rush me early, I can actually get away with 14 hatching here, or maybe even 13 hatching or something like that. So I'm curious if I do it this game. Okay, no, I don't. That's fine. And I think my reasoning for it, oh yeah, actually remember, right at the start of this game, I actually scrolled here to see if there was a straight path over to this base's natural, and there is. So actually, if you guys can see the mini-map right here, oh look, and Tristan just logged online. I'll probably play with him after this. Yeah, so if we look at the minimap, ignore the main screen unless you want to oogle at Blizzard's art. But this attack path is super short, like super short. So much so that it's influencing my play based on all the other positions. And it's not a huge influence, but it's influential enough that it needs to be noted. On Gaia, which is a very famous World Cyber Games map, StarCraft 1, vertical positions, for instance, bottom right versus top right, or top left versus bottom left, have a very short distance, but all the other distances are extremely long. But because that's such a short distance, it means you have to have openings that account for that. That's all I'm really doing, is I'm saying I'm not going to get away with Captain Super Ultra Greedy Man build and, you know, hatch here right away. I'm instead going to open with a slightly safer, supposedly slightly less economic build, but again, because I throw that queen down so early, I'm going to be okay. So I scout him, and he opens up with Reaper Harass, and for some reason I forgot that Reapers exist. And for any of you in the beta, that's hard to do, because like every player goes for Reaper. I swear to God, like 99% of players are just like, alright, I'm going to kill him with Reapers. If that doesn't work, then shucks, he's hacking. You know, those accusations have already begun. But yeah, I completely forgot about it this game. So, you know, whatever. No big deal. I'm gassing a little bit later. Again, notice that in that other Zerg vs. Zerg, I gassed on 16, and that felt a little bit too early. So I'm gassing a little bit later this game. And I'm kind of winging it. I'm only thinking about the opening. I don't really have a good mid-game plan established, and I sort of pull one together on the fly here that could have been improved, but you're going to see how it's literally a StarCraft 1 game plan, and, you know, there's no reason I can't do it. No reason I can't cheat a little bit. So here he is. He's going Reapers. And, yeah, oops, sorry, I meant to slow it down, but I missed the button. I completely forgot about Reapers, so I sent all my Zerglings forward, so I was like, shit, so I'm like pulling back here, and then fortunately my Zerglings get in the way. But yeah, early Queen is very useful for holding off Reaper Harass. I think Reaper Harass is less broken than the form goers seem to assert, and by form goers I mean the BattleNet support forums. I like them though. I think they're a nice fair unit. They're very weak, they fall super fast, and really what it means is you need to manage units in your base, kind of like I'm not doing right now. There I go with my queen. Yeah, get out. And you see, I actually managed to kill off both of them. But look at what's awesome about Tristan's build. Tristan, in the meantime, has just, you know, gotten to do whatever he wants. You know, he's getting to expand right now. He could have probably gotten away with skipping this barrack and throwing down that expansion early. He hasn't even walled off at his front because that harass is so strong it's forced me to pull back. So I like that quite a bit. but now I'm getting my gas geyser, and this is the point where I'm like, alright, cool, I'm alive. And I built a spine crawler here, which I think is an overreaction. In my head I was going, oh god, you know, I really need to get a spine crawler up in case he Reaper harasses here, because I can defend in my main, but I don't know if I can defend down here. So this feels a little early, but I'm going to do something with this that I like quite a bit later. And here I have a Zergling just checking out the Xel'Naga Watchtower. I'm trying to be diligent about watching my mini-map for Reapers. Haha! Using outgame resources, aka IPM, how quickly my eye can dart around the map in order to protect from Reaper harass. I'm going to go ahead and invent crazy phrases like that, so that way people will talk more like me. Here's my Zergling coming around, because after a while I'm like, wait, I have no idea what you're doing. So I see this Marine Marauder combination, and Tristan and I have been playing a lot of Terran vs. Protoss against each other, and Tristan's gotten really good with this Marine Marauder combination against Protoss, just this timing, so that's why he's sort of pulling this off. You'll notice his money's super low. He's doing a really good job of muling like crazy, so big props to him for that little successful thing-a-ring-a-roo. So, I unburrowed my spine crawler because I just wanted to check what the hotkeys were to make sure that I got it properly. No real reason that I moved it around there. I'm not actually doing anything right now. I literally have just been making Zerglings. Or excuse me, just been making drones and powering like mad. Feels a little bit vulnerable. But this is the first thing that I started to like. Oh yeah, I got Zergling speed. First thing I really liked that I did, look at this positioning. I was originally building a spine crawler here for defense, but now that I have enough troops in the map, I'm just pulling back here for any drop or for any Reapers. I thought that was pretty fancy, extending the use of that spine crawler. Oh, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, we've just hit 1,000 viewers in the stream, so thank you so much for all my live buddies who are checking out the Day 9 Daily. And Tristan's doing his usual thing, and at this point I'm going to speed it up a little bit. So right now I'm going, I have no idea what my goal is right now. So this is what I'm going to do. I am going to go mass Zergling because I do this a lot. I went into the tech tree just to double check what the unit damages were on Marines and Marauders and see how they did against Zerglings, and I thought, you know what? If I get enough Zerglings, I can probably defend a decent sized Marine Marauder army. I think that's reasonable to assert. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my Evolution Chamber now and start getting that +1 armor upgrade. And when that finishes, I'll get a second Evolution Chamber, so that way I can get +2/+1 on my armor and my attack upgrade. And I'll just go straight for Ultralifts, because those things are sweet, and that was literally my whole thought process. But you know what? It's a thought process, it's a plan. Same thing happens all the time in Starcraft 1, where you get the early Evolution Chamber for the +1, and you just use Zerglings in the mid-game to defend as you're slowly building up gas, and then you tech towards Ultralifts or something else like that. Very common in Zerg vs. Protoss, a little bit less common in Zerg vs. Terran, because you actually generally get the Mutalisks, but still basically same idea going on here. I still have not really mastered Mutalisk control because the 3D kind of screws me up. But, yeah, no big deal. Yeah, Tristan, he's still muling like crazy. Man, that's hard to remember to do, so that's pretty awesome. Yeah, looking at muling like crazy. Oh, baby, baby. So I'm going to go ahead and keep powering drones, and now I'm going ahead and getting my 2 geysers right here because I want to be getting more gas for Ultralifts. I'm noting I have quite a bit of money, and that I've been making drones for a while, so I can probably get away with making some Zerglings. And of course I try to move in here, and I'm like, shit, gotta back up a little bit. And here comes my drone. I'm going to go ahead and expand. I think this is a big mistake that I expanded to here. I think I should almost certainly expand here, but, you know, I got greedy because they look like gold. How can you resist, right? But, you know, very clear mistake, and we're going to see that in a little bit. And here I am. I'm going to be getting a second Evolution Chamber at some point here. Is this +2? No, it's still +1. So I got my little thingaroos up, got my hatches up, and I think at this point I started to notice I had a lot of money coming in, and I was thinking, you know, I think I could get another queen here. And I think I could have had that queen here earlier on, so hey, for the mid-game, I'm going to try to get a second queen around 45 food, assuming I haven't gotten any sort of giant, you know, attack that screwed me up early on, assuming I've actually gotten to power drones the way I wanted. And by the way, I'm going to be trying to tech to a hive relatively quickly. There's my infestation pit, because I want that adrenal gland. And look, he's moving out here with his little forceroo. And notice how vulnerable this expansion feels. I'm slowly adding on more Zerglings, so I technically would be able to defend this really well, but he's going to be able to kill this off really easily. I managed to do a miracle defense. So he comes up here to check, and my superhero Zergling manages to take a few hits down, and my Overlord's just like, bah! Bah! God, man, I can do all the Zerg noises like a superhero. Superhero. And continue to make Zerglings, and My god, it's a little bit obnoxious because occasionally when you have like 5 larvae right after a queen vomit, you have to hit Z Z Z Z Z Z Z Z just to be able to spam out of all of them. But I have 300 APM, or as I like to call it, 151 APM. So yeah, I'm kind of slow in this game. But yeah, so my hatch finishes here. And I have a pretty significant Zergling army, and I managed to pinch his off right away. So let's actually pause it and slow this down, because I like to slow down battles if I just don't know. And I'm noticing, obviously, this is an incredibly good angle to have caught him at. I mean, there's really not much you can do about that. And he's getting Hellions. I don't know if this is too late to be getting Hellions, or if he should even be going for Hellions at all. I mean, Reapers do quite a lot of damage against the Zerglings. I am noticing, though, that neither of us have upgrades, but I'm going to get way ahead of him in upgrades. So I briefly want to check here. Oh, yes, we just started infantry weapons. Probably, I think he should get that out earlier, because this attack just happened for him, right? He was just like, all right, I guess I'm going to attack now, which is going to happen, you know, early on when you're playing a strategy game you've never really played before. But I would like to think of some way that he could expand early on, get this +1 attack upgrade, and then move out right when he gets +1 attack. That's a very easy way to establish timings for yourself, is to get those upgrades early on and move out right when you get them. So even here, I over-micro, I way overshoot him. Probably going to need to work on that a little bit. But, you know, overall things are going well. Notice my gas is starting to stockpile up here. I'm continuing to make lots of Zerglings. My macro's going okay. Yeah, you know, I really think I could have gotten that other queen up a little bit earlier, because I could have used the larva to get this running a little earlier as well. So I managed to hold that off. So I'm feeling like, hey, maybe I can use Zerglings in the mid-game to delay while I get Ultralisks. And notice my +1 carapace is now done on my Zerglings, so they have their fancy schmancy 1 armor. I've given my Zerglings battle shield. And I have 2 evolution chambers. Hey, look, I'm sticking to my plan. All I'm going to do is I'm going to make Zerglings, and I'm going to try to expand. Excuse me. And then I'm just going to get Ultralisks, which, as we'll see, are totally, totally sweet. So I'm going to go ahead and speed it up. So, alright, you've just won a big battle. It's important that whenever you win a big battle, you run through your advantage checklist. I did a podcast on that a while ago of winning with the advantage, because I think one of the biggest mistakes that players make is they get a lead and they just go, oh, and then they like attack or something stupid, or, you know, their opponent will sneak an expansion or something like that. So it's important you always go through the following big checklist. The first one, scout the whole map. Make sure he isn't trying to sneak an expansion anywhere. Especially in Starcraft 2, where players don't have good plans. Anytime you don't have a good plan, your macro naturally slips, because your brain's trying to think, what do I do, instead of, how do I do what I want to do well? So with all this money build up, a lot of players just throw down expansions willy-nilly because they have the money to do it and they want to spend it. So you should definitely be scouting in any strategy game, but especially right at the start of a new one. The second one is make sure that your harassment routes are pretty well covered. You don't want to you don't want to have your overlords all clustered in your base. I mean, look right here. Look at this valley. I have a nice sight line right here of everything that's between us. I'm actually going to move my mouse cursor away because I have the little yellow ball underneath it, but you can see a bunch of dots. I'll actually just go here and show you, because there's no reason I can't. Yeah, look, I have overlords. Just making sure that there's nothing getting in between us. That's the second thing. I'm just going to make sure that I don't lose to any sort of stupid harass. And the third thing is be really careful with attacking. I've just killed off his big army. That doesn't mean that I should immediately go try to counterattack him. So as we're seeing in this game, I poke forward with my army right here. Not that many Zerglings. And look, he has a bunker, and he has some Hellions and some Marauders. So I'm just kind of like, ugh, yeah, I'm not going to try to commit to getting in there early. I actually want to do a little bit more analysis of just this sliver of time here in this game. Tristan definitely noted a few things that he screwed up. For instance, he does not have the battle shield upgrade for Marines. See this upgrade? It gives +10 hit points to the Marines. He also didn't get stim. So those could have been huge deciding factors, because I really didn't win the battle with that many more Zerglings than this. So actually, as I'm seeing this game now, I think I powered a little too hard. I think I have a few too many drones right here, and I should have been making more Zerglings earlier on to account for the fact that his force could have been stronger. So cool. Again, to tie all the other replays to this one, I'm starting to see how this build order that I've been playing around with, how it's working in, seems like, 2 of the matchups. 2 matchups I would expect it to against Protoss and Terran. Not working so well against Zerg. And it's allowing me to do some plans that I want. It's allowing me to transition into a mid-game plan, which in this case is just going to be, get adrenal glands for Zerglings and just go straight for Ultralisk. I think I'm in my Ultralisk cavern right back here. I'm continuing to make Zerglings, though. I'm not going to overbuild stuff. And I think I made, again, look, I'm making way too many drones here. I'm kind of overpowering. I should have been a good little Zerg and scouted this earlier, but I eventually get around to it. Look, he is trying to sneak an expansion. Could have been super, super bad if I hadn't done that. And I also think that something well, he actually mentioned this, that somehow he forgot to put guys in this geyser and forgot to put guys in this geyser. So he was very short on gas and would have liked to use that. And of course, I just have my geysers saturated like crazy, and we're going to see a whole bunch of Ultralisks pop out. So I'm actually going to go ahead and speed this up. Ultralisks are way more expensive. Oh yeah, this is the part where only now does it look like I actually went and got the queen. And I'm realizing, at this point in the game, this queen wasn't particularly useful. I actually couldn't spend. So, I'll come back to this queen in just a moment, because we're going to see how annoying that is for a while. So here, this is where I was like, man, I should not have expanded here. He just gets to waltz right up here and just kill me off. I have some Zerglings positioned in the back to cut him off, but I'm not liking this part of my mid-game plan of taking this so early. I need a lot better control over this region, which I really don't have. I was really intending to fall back. Oh, by the way, I don't know what happened. I just started going Overlord crazy, man. What was wrong with me? Look, I have so many Overlords. I don't know how that happened. But yeah, see, this is why I don't want this Overlord here. I want to be able to fall back and forth with this Zergling group and hit him right as he gets to my front. As we're going to see, this Ultralisk pretty much just takes care of everything for me. Yeah, look at this. This is just... Yeah, and he tries to move back, and I managed to pinch him. We see him clicking around quite a bit. So I was obviously pretty pleased with this result. But I want to come back here and look at this queen. I'm trying as hard as I can to make Ultralisks. The instant my money pops over 300, I make an Ultralisk. So this queen, I can't really use right now. I'm not liking this. Now, you'll remember earlier on I was saying to myself, I was really noticing I could support a queen earlier on. I think I should get it around 45 food. And now it looks like I'm saying, oh man, I have this queen here. Oh god, I don't have enough money for that, Seems like I'm doing contradictory things. But this is what I want you to think about. If I got that queen earlier on, I maybe would have been able to get my expansion up earlier, get the drones there earlier. I would have gotten a bigger army. I should have teched more quickly. And then I could have even taken a 4th base early on, so I could have been making use of a queen all game long. The reason this queen right now is really not helpful is the fact that I just lost this expansion and that my timing wasn't as smooth as it could have been earlier on. I'm really starting to think that maybe I'm trying to be powering a little bit too hard here. If I did stay with my same level of powering, I think I can squeeze a queen out. So yeah, things to think about. If I got that queen out earlier, maybe I could have had this much stronger economy. So I'm using my Zerglings to pick some stuff off. And from here, it's easy cleanup. Because we're going to see I get like a bazillion Ultralisks. Here's my Ultralisk. I think I actually attack here. I don't know what I wanted to do. I just went back and forth and just lost a bunch of stuff. So you know what? I just did not know what I wanted to do with this Ultralisk. He was going back and forth. Be decisive. So I was like, you know what? Whatever. Just go for it. And as it turns out, that was a great decision. Watch how well this goes. Oh, wait a minute. I didn't realize Ultralisks were that awesome. And they are. Look how much damage this is. 20 damage. I even got my +1 upgrades. They can headbutt stuff. And of course, they have 5 armor right now, which is oftentimes awesome. Yeah, I'm messing up my Ultralisks. And of course, at this stage in the game, I'm bothered by the fact that I don't really have that much money. More importantly, I don't have an expansion. Ugh, that's kind of bad. But you'll notice at the top of the map, I have a Zergling patrolling, keeping an eye on my keeping an eye on the other expansions. And here's our final confrontation, where I pretty much just attack, move. I don't even have my hands on the keyboard. I'm just going, yes, and screaming at Tristan through Ventrilo. Haha, I need to rush for these more often. But, there's not really that much commentary-worthy stuff going on right now, but this is awesome. Let's just watch this one more time. Look at me just brutalize Tristan. Yeah. Oh, yeah, look at the Ultralisks. Oh, baby. All right. Oh, so that was a satisfying little end to things. So just to recap, I'm going to go ahead and unmute the chat, and so that way people can post questions. I'll just take a few questions because I'm going for about 50 minutes now. But it's cool to see how I took this one build, that, again, thanks to Battle for just some of the ideas behind that, and I played around with it in all 3 matchups. And in particular, I got to see that it seems viable against Protoss. I have a lot of ways to hold stuff off early on. Against Terran, I feel okay about holding stuff off early on, but I'm still worried that I powered a little bit too much. I'm still worried that I powered a little bit too strongly and didn't really have the Zerglings for some sort of big threat. We didn't get the chance to look at the Noni versus David Kim game, but the comments I really had on that were the same as what I said before, which was that if it is a map such that I'm not worried about early aggression, I'll probably go ahead and try to do a 14 hatchery instead of a 13 pool. I'll go ahead and try to hatch at my expo. And the reason I like that Noni versus David Kim game is because David Kim gets rushed and he manages to hold it off barely. I like that. I thought it was pretty cool. So let's go ahead and pause it one more time. Pause the chat, take a few questions, and once again, I just want to do a big shout out to Diggity in Colorado and all the people over at SC2, now that we have 1,000 people in the stream, or SC2GG.com, because they were apparently promoting my show. A lot of people have heard of the Day 9 Daily through them, so I just thank them sincerely a lot for doing that. So do the same thing, go watch their stuff, and tell them you heard about it at the Day 9 Daily. So, let's see, Joel1031, who actually took a question from yesterday, says, do you really need that many workers with improved worker AI? Seems like 40 on 2 bases might be a bit much when each base only has 6 to 8 mineral patches. So, yeah, I think I'm making a few too many drones. I know of some people who've done some analysis on like optimization of workers, and 2 workers per patch is almost saturated. I think it's like 80 to 90% saturation rate. And three workers per patch is absolutely saturated. So I definitely think that Joel's comment is fantastic because, again, I just got too many drones because I'm a StarCraft 1 player. You can never have too many workers in StarCraft 1. People asking some questions about how do I feel about banelings, and I like this question because I was actually considering that against Protoss. I was thinking, well, let's say my opponent is being really, really aggressive. It might be a great choice instead of, just launching pens all over the place. It might be a great choice, instead of rushing for roaches or something like that, instead to throw down a baneling nest and just get some banelings. That way I can use my excessive Zergling number early on to sort of hold and hold and hold, and then I get the banelings, morph into some banelings, run right into his army, and just crush it and push it back hard all the way to his base. So my feelings about baneling is they're an excellent tool for early defense. I might even consider that against Terran. I keep forgetting that banelings actually exist, which I know is a dumb thing to say, but always after my games I go like, oh man, I could have gotten banelings, so I'm going to do that. Or even against Zerg. Maybe I haven't considered Zerg. Getting banelings in Zerg versus Zerg. Let's see here. So Deathball says, I noticed that you put all your tech structures behind your mineral lines. You do this because SimCity is non-existent for Zerg. It's because I haven't considered SimCity yet. I'm still trying to get the basics of all the build orders down. And the reasoning behind that is that I'm aware of using buildings to block little holes and to be valuable for extra defense. But for now, I want to wait until a period of time where I can say, man, it would be really great if I could block this thing off. Because right now I don't even really know what's necessarily good or bad, and I don't really know how to be very thin with my defense and get away with stuff. I mean, I just need a lot more experience for that. But for the most part, I build it behind my mineral line because I think it's cool that they can fit there. So I play a lot with Legos. I like it when things fit nice. So so people are Gen XC5, maybe it's a Genesis with all the symbols, says, do you think they're going one hatch queen into mutas against tosses and all-in build? Or one that can be used to pin toss in their base while expanding or powering? Ooh, this is a great question. So, a lot of what Genesis is trying to say right now is that, actually I think there's less to talk about of the build specifically, but more about the functionality of larva. I want to tie it back to that big point about how do we manage our larva to think about transitions and strategies with Zerg. If we open up with that one hatch Mutalisk, we can get a lot of Mutalisk and do a ton of damage with him. But then I think that's a good opportunity for us to do some powering. And in particular, one basing with any sort of big harassment, followed by powering, sounds like a great idea. In StarCraft 1, that wouldn't quite be so viable, because we don't, a lot of one-base strategies require 2 hatches to actually have a lot of units in StarCraft 1. So a good StarCraft 1 player says, well, if I'm getting 2 hatcheries in one base, why don't I just build the second hatchery and expansion and get the expansion up? However, in StarCraft 2, we can actually cut that cost, get the queen, and do all sorts of really cute creative rushes with either, mutalisks, roaches, hydralisks, these sorts of things, and then power right afterwards. And that is absolutely a path that I would love to go down. I think a lot of other people should go down that, because far too many people on the servers right now are just going one hatch, and once they get the unit they want to build, they only make that. One hatch roach rush, just roaches non-stop for the rest of the game. And they never pause to power or something like that. One hatch hydralisk is very popular, especially among a little player we all know and love named Hotbit. He just keeps making hydralisks. I would love to see more transitioning out of it and that sort of thing. So I'm just going to take one more question, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up for tonight. Oh yeah, for people who are asking about my schedule, it's currently in the description of this channel on livestream.com, so you can get some information there. What else is going on here? I'll be streaming my games probably next week. Probably going to set that up because I need to use Adobe Flash Encoder, which I haven't set up yet. I'll just take this last question from Flop Turn Reaver about the removal of Reavers and Vultures and Lurkers in StarCraft 2. What do I think about the new units in relation to them? One thing that I loved about those units in StarCraft 1, about just the Reaver and the Lurkers and the Vultures with mines, is it created those big, explosion moments, where you have this enormous army of Medic Marine that walks right into some Lurkers and bam, instantly dead. Like, completely demolished your main army. Done. And Reavers, same thing. I dropped it in the worker line, one explosion completely obliterates all of them. One explosion shot that's well placed in a Hydra pack, and it's gone. A mine pops up and kills 8 Dragoons. I mean, these sorts of things are these sort of big explosion moments. And I've seen not that much of it in StarCraft 2, but a lot of it's because all my games are like 8 minutes long with people rushing like crazy. There's some sweet stuff that happens. For instance, the Ghost Sniper ability, how he just goes and you can actually shift select it and have him snipe a bunch of units at a time, or those EMP blasts. I'm looking forward to that sort of stuff. So that's a little bit of my opinion for StarCraft 2, is that I'm hoping to see a lot more of just kablam rapid stuff dying. So, you know what, that's going to wrap up Day 980 number 74. Tune in tomorrow because I will be doing an epic StarCraft 1 game between Jaedong and Stork. So, thank God we're doing a game I actually know stuff about. Oh, man, I've actually been making stuff up this whole time. Whew. But yeah, so I'm going to be doing a little bit of that, and then continuing on with StarCraft 2 coverage, just little thoughts and build orders and that sort of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute the chat so people can feel free to spam away, and that's going to wrap things up. Thanks so much, everyone. Cheers.